Hi folks, it's time for Lit Term number 4, and this week we're talking about point of view, which is a form of narration because it involves looking at the narrator, who's the person telling the story, or in terms of poetry, you would call them the speaker. This is not the same as the author, so don't get confused when you're talking about literature that the author is the one telling the story. They write it, but their narrator is usually different than themselves, or in poetry, a lot of times people mistake what's written as being the author's feelings, but it's a speaker, it's somebody outside of themselves. So you can figure out which narration you're using depending on the pronouns that are used in the story. First person is always going to use first person pronouns, which means they're using I, me, we, and us. You can know that because I looks like number 1. And they're a person who is participating in the story. So you're going to get their thoughts and feelings and their perspective on events and no one else's. Third person then breaks down into 3 kinds. They're going to use third person pronouns like he, she, it, and they. But you have different options here depending on what information you're told. So third person limited is going to focus only on the thoughts and feelings of one character. So they're going to tell the story in he and she, but you're only going to know it from that person's perspective. So it's not going to be as objective as a different point of view. Omniscient, omni means all, psi means knowing. So an omniscient narrator is going to know everything about everybody. So you're going to know more thoughts and feelings of characters than you would if you were in a limited form. And objective is what journalists are supposed to be. So objective means that they don't show any inner thoughts. They just give you their exact facts and that's it. No opinions. So that's one of the big debates in today's society because that leads us to another sub-lit term here under objective because people are really upset with the news today because they feel like they have this fancy little word here called bias, which basically means that instead of just reporting the facts and letting people decide for themselves, they choose words or give information that tries to sway the person watching the news or reading the newspaper to feel or think a certain way. So that's why that's such a big debate. That's why we hear the term fake news all the time. You have to really be careful and know the paper, the roots of it, who's paying for it, who publishes it, that kind of stuff to determine whether they are actually being a true objective narrator or whether they are a biased one. So that's it for this week, except that this is super important. I'm going to know whether you actually listen to this video or just copy down the screen based on whether you have more information than what is right here. Because the point of this is that you listen to this more than copy the words down. So, point of view, really important. Have a good week.